Buongiorno, welcome back to my channel. Today is a little bit different. I am going to talk a lot about myself today because I am going to talk about my life in fragrances. So it's kind of a personal history story, but we are going to talk about a lot of perfumes. So my journey into the fragrance world, the fragrances that I used to smell growing up. So I guess this is a little bit of a chatty video. So if you are into these kind of videos and you want maybe to know a little bit more about me, then this video is definitely for you. But before diving into my history, if you are new to my channel, hi. Welcome, my name is Noura, and on this channel I usually don't talk a lot about myself. Actually, I talk about fragrances. So if you are a fragrance lover, then please consider subscribing and also hit the notification bell so you will get notified when I upload any new video. Also follow me on Instagram, where I post some exclusive content that I don't do here on YouTube. And let's jump in. So I turned 42 this year, and that means that I was born in the 80s. So I was born in 1980 in Alexandria, Egypt. My mother was German and my father was Egyptian. So I had both culture presented to me right from the beginning. And just a small backup story. In the 80s, Egypt was in like a transitional period. So we were just coming out of socialism and we're entering like the liberal capitalism market. And if we talk about fragrances, of course, the fragrances that dominated the 80s were Opium from Yves Saint Laurent, not to be confused with opium that you have now on the market. It's totally reformulated. It was another thing. I remember my sister talking about this fragrance with her friends. I was the youngest one, so I used to hear them talk about how amazing this fragrance is and how they love it. And also I grew up smelling fragrances like Poison from Dior, not the reformulated again ones that you can find now. It was totally a different beast. So mostly at that time I was in contact with extremely opulent, strong, beastly fragrances. I heard someone talk about this era in fragrances and described it like perfumes with the shoulder pads. I totally agree. You know, I hated the shoulder pads, but anyway. And I also grew up smelling fragrances that were older. So I'm the youngest one from my family, and my mother didn't use perfumes, but she had the one perfume or two that she had like a small bottle that she used in very, very special occasions. Oh my God. I remember sneaking in her bedroom and like opening it and smelling the fragrance. And I don't remember the second one, but the one that definitely I remember was Rocha, Madame Rocha. Of course, this is now a very vintage, old school fragrance that I would never wear, but I was so fascinated by this fragrance. It's like in the vibe of, you know, Chanel No. 5, this aldehydic floral fragrance. My mother was also a big fan of Chanel. So yeah, this is the environment I grew up in. So these very Middle Eastern, Oriental fragrances that are very opulent, very strong, also have this sexiness, this femme fatale vibe to them. And at that time it was very difficult to find like Western fragrances because number one, it was extremely expensive because we had like, till now we have like big taxes on fragrances. So it was only the fortunate people who can, you know, travel and buy some fragrances or from Europe or from Saudi Arabia. Actually was like the destination to get these products. And I didn't own any fragrance until I was maybe 11, when my uncle, who lives in a city that has a port that was tax-free, I don't know how you call it, at that time it was tax-free, and he bought me Chanel Coco. He bought also one for my sister and for my mother. I don't remember now the name of the fragrance. I looked it up from like pictures. I think it was Kenzo Sasampo. I don't know. I will drop a picture of that fragrance here. And I was so mad because I loved that fragrance and I wanted more than this one. Maybe it was like a rebellious thing. So these were the fragrances of the past. I want something totally different. So this floral fragrance was for me like the bottle, the scent was like, yes, I wanted this one. Why didn't my uncle give me that fragrance? You know, I was so mad. I didn't like cocoa at all at that time. At this age, you want to be different, you know. So everyone is wearing like these ambery, dark Middle Eastern fragrances. I want something light and floral, you know. But since fragrances were very expensive, I was stuck with that one, and with time I grew to adore it. So yeah, actually this is the original bottle. I love it so much. I love the fragrance, and the scent is just amazing, a masterpiece. If I have to choose one fragrance for life, it will be this one. It is linked to so many memories, and now I can say it's also a fragrance that represents me in a way. So if I have to choose one fragrance that represents my personality, my life, everything, it will be Chanel Coco's Eau de Parfum for sure. Also, this one is reformulated, but it's not as bad as, for example, Opium and Poison and these fragrances. So it took me a long time to get any other fragrance. And at that time, I used to sneak to my sister's room and smell her fragrances. She had 3 or 4. It was Anais. She had Opium, and she had Lancôme Trésor, which was, I think, like a new release at that time. And she was obsessed with that fragrance. Till now, actually, she loves like the original Trésor, not La Nuit Trésor, the original Trésor so much. And shockingly, I fell in love with Poison from Dior. So I kept on saving my money to get that fragrance and waited for someone who is traveling abroad to get me that one. But my money was not enough, so I just went for, at that time, a total dupe of it. So a counterfeit of Poison, which were quite similar actually. They did a great job at replicating the smell. Not 100%, but it was like close enough for me. So I got that one. I spent all my money on it. This is how much fragrances were expensive if we are talking about brands. So I had my Chanel Coco, I had my Poison, and another fragrance that was a total new release at that time. I don't remember where I smelled it, but I was so obsessed. It's from a German brand called Eigner, and it's First Number, I think. And that one is like this floral, fresh fragrance, fruity. It has a little bit of a mossy note. Right from the beginning, my taste was always a little bit like adult light. So I didn't like these fruity fragrances or sweet fragrances. Even as a teenager, I used to love very mature fragrances, let's say. And I had like a small miniature set that you could get at the airport, you know, with this little miniature fragrances. And that one, I think, had like a collection of different brands. So it had a small Anais, a small I think it was Pablo Picasso. It was also Lulu from Cacharel. So these old school fragrances, and that was my collection. That until the end of the 90s, when Avon, or Avon, I don't know how to call it, came into Egypt. And they came with very affordable fragrances, and I was obsessed. So my favorite one was a fragrance actually that is still in production. They changed the bottle, and when I was last time in Egypt, I found my old bottle. Look at that. Rare Gold. Oh man, I love this fragrance so much. Yeah, it's gone bad, of course. But yeah, that smell, I was totally obsessed with this fragrance. Totally. It was my go-to fragrance. Again, like a floral fruity fragrance. I am wondering if they reformulated this one. So it's so affordable. Maybe I should bring a new bottle and test if it's still like what I remember, or did they reformulate it. I loved that fragrance so much. I wore it to death. This is actually my second bottle, so I finished one before this one. Then I had C'est Moi. Oh my god, that fragrance. I looked it up and it's not available anymore. That fragrance was so nice. It was quite strange fragrance, let's say. It was floral, but it had this almost I don't know, sweet lemony touch to it, if I remember correctly. It was very, very unique and was very refreshing. And since the summer, I used more of these unisex fragrances that I'm going to talk about it in a minute. But when it's not too hot, I'm talking about Egypt hot, so really, I mean sticky hot. I used C'est Moi. Then came also Oriflame. But from Oriflame, I didn't get a lot of fragrances. I got one that was a unisex, that was in the same vibe of like the trend of that moment. So in the 90s, we are talking about CK1, you know, these fresh unisex fragrances, and it was in the same category. I don't remember the name, and I looked up like the catalog and I couldn't find it, so it's not available anymore. So that one I used when I went to the club. So I mean, when I did some sport or went to the gym, or when it's very hot, I used that one. Another fragrance that I added then when I had more money, I was in college, so I had a little bit more money, is this one. Byzance from Rocha. Of course, this is the new formulation. The old one is totally different, by the way. They completely changed the fragrance. So it's not like diluted. It's a different thing. And yeah, that one, yeah, totally different. It was a very deep ambery fragrance. I loved that one so much. And I remember I paid so much for that fragrance. Going back now with my memory, it was like a big thing for me. I also fell in love with Hugo Boss Deep Red when it was first released, but I never bought it. I was obsessed with the smell, but never bought it. I don't know why. Anyway, I got it actually recently, if you saw it, and it's not it. It's reformulated again. Yeah, anyway. And then was my biggest purchase of all. So I had some money saved, so I went to like a store in Egypt that had like these expensive, you know, Western fragrances, and I got Kenzo Flower. I think it was a new release at that time, and that fragrance made me stop buying any new perfumes. I will tell you why. So I went and I had nothing in mind. So I wanted to test fragrances, and like the lady was nice and she took her time with me, and I didn't like anything. Nothing was really special except of this Kenzo Flower that was a little bit like, you know, strong, a little bit different than the rest. And it's not like I liked it, but I was a little bit like embarrassed to go out from the store without buying anything. So I paid all my money to get that one, and I used it twice. And you know, the strange thing about that is that I still am like that sometimes. When I find like the salesperson is so nice and she takes her time with me, and so I am so embarrassed that I just buy something that I don't really like. Yeah, so I'm a little bit better, but still the struggle is real with me, and that was kind of like a closure for me for fragrances for the longest time. I did not save for perfumes anymore. I did not buy any perfume. I had like a collection. So yeah, these were like sufficient for me. I used them and I didn't buy anything until I got married. And then like my interest in fragrances resurfaced again. Maybe because living in Italy, it was not as expensive as living in Egypt and buying the fragrances there. And also moving through the airport so many times, I sometimes kill time by just stopping by duty free and smell the fragrances. And the one that I chose at that time is Primaire Jour, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, from Nina Ricci. Yeah, I have still like the original bottle. I don't know what I liked about this fragrance now smelling it. I used this one, as you can see, quite a lot, and that was the beginning. So I started again to buy fragrances. The second one is Armani Code. I found all these fragrances stored in my garage from the first time ever in my life to do a declutter, and they were still there. So when I saw them, I thought I have to film this video. Anyway, Armani Code. I think they reformulated this fragrance. Of course, this one is now, yeah, it's bad. It's bad. And at that time I was not bothered by Orange Blossom, and that was my like sexy fragrance. Then my husband got me Chanel Coco Mademoiselle, which honestly I didn't like I still don't like this fragrance, by the way. I got also Insolence, or how it's called, I don't remember, from Guerlain. I have actually still the bottle in Egypt. I found it in my mother house. And then again, I had like this period of my life where I didn't buy any fragrances. I didn't even like test any. And that was until 2017. I was in a very, very bad, dark place in my life. It was the worst time of my life. I lost myself. I didn't know what I want, what I like. And I decided to pull myself together. And it was a long, long journey. So I decided I will do like the easy thing. So let's start by aesthetics, super style. I will find my style, you know. I just started step by step building myself again and to know myself. I was totally lost. So I started by, clothes and perfumes. So I went to Sephora. At that time, I didn't have a lot of money. So it was a big thing for me to go and buy a perfume. I went to Sephora and I tested a lot of fragrances. And I fell in love with this one, Joy from Dior. Now I can't understand why I loved it so much, but oh my god, no one loved this fragrance. I don't know why. I totally fall in love with it. I used to take this bottle beside me in my bed and just keep on smelling the fragrance. It really brought joy to my life. Now I don't understand why I love it so much, but yeah, at that time it served its purpose. And that was my reintroduction into the fragrance world and also to YouTube. Yeah, I actually decluttered this fragrance, but I could not part ways with it. It's a part of my history in a way. Yeah, it reminds me of really difficult times, but it's also a symbol of resilience in a way. It reminds me of like the decision to get up and change stuff, you know? And since I didn't have a lot of money, I searched and I was like thinking, why shouldn't I like look up fragrances on YouTube? And in the back of my mind, I was like, fragrances on YouTube? That would be really stupid. Why would someone talk about fragrances on YouTube? But I just searched and who did I find? Of course, beginning 2017, who was on the fragrance community talking about women fragrances. It was Demi Rowling. I found Jeremy Fragrances. I think he was the introduction to a lot of us into the fragrance world. Anyway, I did not like a lot of his recommendations, to be honest. So I like watched all his top 10s and I went with the list in my hand and like sniffed the fragrances in the store and I was nah. But yeah, at the end I went with Dior Joy that no one loved. And then after a few months I got Lancome Idole, the original one. I loved that one. When I sold that fragrance, it was like half empty. So yeah, that one also was like a happy fragrance for me. And the rest is history. I was so fascinated by the fact how fragrances uplifted my mood in such a drastic way and like really quickly. So that was the point of no return. So I started to watch fragrance reviews, so fragrance content, and I started to add fragrances to my collection slowly. And it was only in 2018 that an explosion happened to my fragrance collection. And then I thought about like creating content. So I started to like add more and more fragrances to my collection and also to declutter. I got into the KonMari method at that time. So it was like fragrances were added and then removed, added and then removed. So it was a period of learning about fragrances at that time. I'm still learning, but I mean, learning about myself and my style in fragrances, and it's a work in progress. At that time when I smelled the fragrance and I liked it, I bought it, you know, and I didn't think a lot, and then I was stuck with it, so I learned my lesson. You know, it's a learning process. And I had the idea of creating a YouTube channel back in 2016, if not even before, maybe in 2015. but I was too shy. I was a little bit afraid. And it was only in 2019 that I decided I want to create a channel. At that time, I was more oriented toward like a lifestyle channel, and I actually filmed a few videos, but the step of like editing them and posting them, I never did. So for a whole year, I was like obsessed with the idea, but I never like took the step. And it was only in 2020 that I finally decided it's now or never. I remember clearly that day I had like massive orders of makeup, skincare and fragrances coming, and I thought, okay, why not start like slow and start with a whole video? And I got a sample of My Way from Giorgio Armani, and no one was talking about the fragrance. So I was like, that's my opportunity. I have to talk about My Way. And I actually filmed, so that was like the first video I ever did was on My Way from Giorgio Armani. I did not post that video, by the way. But yeah, that was the first time that I took the matter quite seriously and I did the video. I ended up not posting that one also because it took me forever to edit it. It was like a sign for me because I already had in my mind like my channel will be called My Way. And when I saw like the fragrance My Way, it was like, I don't know, like a sign for me. So although I don't like the fragrance, to be honest, but sometimes I even like debate with myself, should I buy My Way just because of like the symbol it represents in my life, like my first video, like the meaning it gave me at that time. But yeah, anyway, so I started to create videos. I did not post them until a month later. So at the end of the year, after editing all the videos, I said to myself, so now you filmed, you edited. And I remember till now how afraid I was. I'm a very, very shy and introvert person. So it was like a big step for me. And of course, now looking at these videos, they were like, oh my God, very, very, very bad. And I am sure that in the future, if I look back to this video, I will say, oh my God, what was I thinking? But this is life. This is how we learn and grow. So yeah, that was my life in fragrances. And I compiled also a list of fragrances that represented moments of my life of significance or that bring memories to me. And I'm going to share them with you. The first one is not a fragrance, it's a note. So I talked about this note in the previous video. It's the night blooming flower or cerise. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a flower that grows from a cactus that looks absolutely ugly, but the flower is something to behold. So it's a very rare flower because it grows and it becomes big like that. Really, really big flower, very, very fragile. If you just touch it, it can fall off, and it blooms only for one night. And the smell of that flower, it's just, if someone can recreate the smell of that flower, it will be, I think, the best seller all over the world. Stunning, stunning smell. It has a little bit of a sweet vanillic touch. It's very strong, very opulent, and I doubt that the fragrances that have this note mentioned in it are actually using a natural extract of it, because it's how? I mean, how many flowers do you need to do that? And for such a fragile flower that blooms only one night, it's difficult. And it's the reason why I got this fragrance, for example. It has this note, it doesn't smell like the flower. I got also the one from Azzaro, and after that I just gave up. And why is this note so important, or is this flower so important? I don't know. It's not only like the memories, because it was like an event when this flower bloomed. We had like a big wood, I don't know how to call it, like this cactus, big one, in our balcony. And so it was quite an event. We got chairs, we sit in our balcony and chatted, and it was like this happy time. It was like this special thing that brought us together somehow. Yeah, it's fascinating how like smells are connected to our memories, and the fact that this beautiful flower, and also this beautiful smell is so short-lived and made me think about like enjoying small things, enjoying the things you have in the moment. And another note that is very, very connected to my memory is actually almonds. We had a piece of land outside Alexandria, and the almond flower is so beautiful actually when they all bloomed. Oh my god, this was so beautiful. It was connected to happiness and freedom for me, because in that place I was free to do what I want. It was always summertime, you know, and oh my god, I climbed trees, I did all the crazy stuff that children do. That place is connected to so many memory, and that place is connected to almonds and almond smell. And of course, like children are, I tried to eat almonds that were not ripe, so green almonds, and that made me actually buy a fragrance that was created by Francis Kurjan. This one, Le Couture, to see if there is really green almond. There is, but there's a lot of sweetness, so it's a little bit ruined for me. But yeah, I was like looking forward to see a fragrance with green almond in it, that really represents that smell. So I will forever search for like fragrances that have these two notes that will bring me to that time. Anyway, and the third fragrance is, you know, not a note, is of course Chanel Coco. You know why, I talked a lot about it. And the next one is the smell of the happiest time of my life, and that is Rare Gold, because I used to wear this one when I was in college, and for me college was the best time of my life. Everything was perfect at that time. I was successful, I was happy, I knew what I want. Oh my god, it was like the best time of my life. So it's definitely connected to that time. It was my go-to fragrance. I can almost say that it was my signature scent in a way. And then of course I talked about this one, Dior Joy, connected to a very difficult but yet a turning point in my life. And then you will be shocked, but also Mirto di Panarea from Acqua di Parma, because it's the first niche fragrance I ever bought. And if you follow me for a while, you can see I am really going into niche fragrances. So this fragrance will forever be my first niche fragrance, my introduction into niche world. I know it's quite a long chatty video, so if you stayed till now, thanks a lot. And if you like this video, please give it a thumb up and consider subscribing to my channel. I promise you next videos will not be about me, it will be about fragrances. And also tell me in the comments down below if you have any fragrance that represents your life or like a specific moment of it. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time. Ciao.